Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we're going to learn chapter 2, which is GDP growth and quality of life. Before that, let's begin our class with Al-Fatiha. Okay. For today's class, it will be short lah sebab chapter 2 tak banyak sangat lah. Dia sedikit saja. Tapi saya memang hanya nak stop chapter 2 lah. Saya tak nak continue dengan chapter 3. Okay. Alright. So for chapter 2, GDP, I'm sure that everybody, sebab you economic student, then you actually have learned what is the meaning of economic and so GDP and so on. Yeah. So what is GDP? GDP is gross domestic product. So what is GDP growth? Kalau kita kata secara bahasa yang singkat lah, GDP ni adalah income of the country lah, pendapatan kasar negara. Yeah. Right. So GDP, gross domestic product, refers to the monetary value of all outputs produced by an economy during a year. Yeah. Which means that every product that produced in a country itself is known as GDP. Yeah, which means sama ada Malaysian, kalau Malaysia, sama ada Malaysian ataupun non-citizen yang produce the goods and services in the country kerana dia produce di dalam negara, then the income is known as GDP, gross domestic product. Kalau orang Malaysia produce barang di luar negara untuk negara luar, itu bukan GDP. Itu bukan GDP untuk negara kita. Yeah. Okay. Right. So GDP economic growth is a measure of the percentage increase in GDP of a country from one period to another. Kalau kita sebut pasal growth, bila kita kata GDP economic growth itu dalam bentuk percentage. Kita nak measure berapa persen pendapatan kita meningkat setiap tahun, sama ada 5%, 10% ataupun berapa persen. Jadi GDP economic growth ni dia measure percentage increase in GDP of the country for one period to another. Kita compare daripada satu tahun ke tahun yang seterusnya, GDP economic growth dalam bentuk percentage. Right. A positive growth, a positive economic growth indicate economic prosperity. Negative economic growth ataupun kita kata negative growth is known as slowdown ataupun kita kata economic turmoil ataupun economic recession. Jadi bila economic growth itu meningkat, dia meningkat lah, maknanya dia upward sloping, bermaksud positive economic growth. Kalau negative, bermaksud the economy is actually decreasing, decreasing ataupun slow down ataupun recession. Right. So what are the components of GDP? I'm sure you all mesti dah lupa kan, ataupun dua saya ingat memang baguslah. So basically there are three components of GDP. Kita menggunakan three approach, maksudnya nak kira GDP kita ada three approach. Satu output approach, kedua income approach dan yang ketiga expenditure approach. Right. So what is output approach? Macam mana nak kira GDP? Kita tengok output berdasarkan output ataupun produk. Jadi to determine GDP, the value of goods and services produced in the economy are added together. The value of goods means the quantity of goods produced multiplied by price and goods. Okay. To avoid double counting or adding the value of output to the GDP more than once, only the value of all final output of goods and services are included, and the intermediate goods is excluded. Maksudnya kita hanya melihat final goods and services sahaja dan kita tengok based on the value of money value. Okay. So untuk output approach kita tengok different sectors. Okay, basically in economy there are three sectors. Kita ada primary sector, secondary sector dan juga tertiary sector. So what is primary sector? Primary sector is known as agriculture sector. Sektor-sektor pertanian seperti pertanian, perikanan, seperti padi, penanaman padi, penangkapan ikan, macam nelayan tu kan, dan all sorts of manufacturing, all sorts of agriculture activity lah, agriculture activity. and also services, right? And then kita ada, agriculture activity. Agriculture activity itu bermaksud production untuk agriculture saja. Services lain itu untuk primary sector. Untuk secondary sector kita panggil sebagai manufacturing ataupun construction. Maksudnya sekiranya kita negara tu involved dalam banyak aktiviti perkilangan, perindustrian and so on, kita panggil sebagai secondary sector. Dan tertiary sector adalah services lah. Services tu macam mana? Contohnya tourism, pendapatan daripada tourism activities, pendapatan daripada education, pendapatan daripada transportation, pendapatan daripada wholesale, pendapatan daripada macam-macam lagi services, So itu adalah output approach, Kita ada three sectors, Primary agriculture sector, secondary manufacturing sector, dan tertiary adalah services, Kemudian kita ada second approach which is income approach. So what is income approach? GDP can also be measured by summing total income earned by the resource owners on what is produced in the nation. Total income includes corporate and entrepreneurs income, wages and salaries, interest income and rental income. Jadi kita hanya ambil pendapatan yang resource owner ataupun return for the resources itu sahaja. Contohnya kalau labor wages atau salary. Kalau capital interest, kita ambil interest. Kalau land kita ambil rental, And then untuk entrepreneur kita ambil entrepreneur's income ataupun profit. Itu adalah untuk kira income approach, menggunakan income approach. Sekiranya kita gunakan expenditure approach, so this GDP can be measured by adding all expenditure together. The expenditure approach represents aggregate demand, the demand of goods and services in the economy. And then we have the components of aggregate demands are consumption, investment, government spending, and also net export. Jadi kita nak dapatkan GDP itu berdasarkan apa? Berdasarkan komponen-komponen aggregate demand. Maksudnya sekiranya consumption meningkat, sekiranya investment meningkat, sekiranya government expenditure meningkat, dan sekiranya export meningkat berbanding dengan import, then kita kata GDP is increasing and vice versa. So itu adalah expenditure approach. Jadi I hope that you can differentiate these three approaches untuk kira GDP. Okay, so these three approaches will give GDP lah ataupun same value of GDP. And the economic growth in terms of percentage adalah kita panggil sebagai annual percentage increase in real GDP. Itu adalah economic growth tadi itulah. So this is desirable as it means an increase in total output, increase in total income, and increase in total expenditure in economy. Jadi bedanya sama. Kalau kita sebut GDP, Gross Domestic Product, meningkat, then kita kata okay, total output meningkat untuk dalam negara, kita boleh kata total income meningkat dalam negara, kita boleh kata total expenditure meningkat di dalam negara atau ekonomi itu. Itu maksudnya GDP. Kalau GDP increase, GDP increase. Kalau GDP decrease, total income reduce, total output reduce, total expenditure reduce. Itu maksudnya kalau kita sebut pasal GDP itu di dalam kepala kita lah. Okay. So now what happen kalau more output produce? Dia macam interrelated tau. So when more outputs are produced in a country, more workers will be actually hired. Jadi maksudnya bila adanya output yang banyak ini adalah disebabkan oleh kita mempunyai banyak labor. So more laborers are hired. So this worker will receive income. Betul? So more workers, they will receive income. So income tu banyak lah. And with the income, they can purchase goods and services. And this will improve their life and satisfaction. Sebab dia bila ada pendapatan, dia boleh beli barang dan dia boleh meningkatkan kita panggil sebagai dia punya standard of living dan boleh meningkatkan kepuasan, satisfaction. So, kita kata apa? The rise in GDP means, also mean more profit for the business. Sebab maksudnya pendapatan entrepreneur increase kan. Jadi with more profit, firm improve their ability to invest in capital. So dia boleh buat banyak investment. And then dia boleh hire more workers because of profit yang dia ada itu, boleh hire more workers and continue to produce more goods and services, more outputs with the benefit which will benefit the consumers. Yeah. So given the ability of GDP to measure increase in output, expenditure and income, GDP is regarded as the most widely used indicator of the economic health of a nation. Jadi kerana GDP ini boleh menyebabkan kita come into the conclusion that when GDP increases, output increases, expenditure increases and income increases, then these terms are widely regarded as the indicator, as regarded ataupun kita kata widely used, as an indicator of the economic health of a nation. Economic health bermaksud economic progression, ataupun economic condition of the country. Jadi kita nak tahu economic condition of the country, kita tengok GDP.